All right, well, we're all here, so why don't we start? Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here this morning and this evening. My name is Matthew Johnston. I'm the Counsellor for Education and Science based at the Australian Embassy in Brazil, though temporarily relocated to Canberra during the pandemic. But I'm happy to say we'll be returning to Brazil in the new year. Welcome today to our virtual research MOU signing between the Australian Government Department of Education, Skills and Employment and Confap. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all here today, and I'd like to commence by acknowledging the traditional owners of on whose land we are meeting today, the Ngunnawal and the people here in Canberra, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So before we commence the formalities, and we've circulated an agenda, I would just like to, I think it might be helpful if I introduced everyone who is both here in the room in Canberra and on virtually in Brazil, so that we can sort of know who we all are and will be helpful for our agenda. So Ms. Karen Sandercock is the First Assistant Secretary of International Division in the Department of Education. His Excellency Embaixador Sergio Lima, Ambassador to Australia from Brazil, Mr. Fabio Roca from the Brazilian Embassy, Councillor. In our team here in Canberra, Ms. Barbara Klompenhauer, who has been working with Brazil and with Latin American education issues for a number of years. She's our resident expert, I'm just a pretender. And Mr. David Ward here as well from that team. And why don't we now go to virtually. It's a great pleasure to have with us today the International Director from the Australian Academy of Science, Ms. Nancy Pritchard, who works very closely with this department in a range of science and research cooperation activities, and indeed worked very closely with us for a number of years, running an excellent Latin American PhD internship program, and a number of Brazilian PhD students benefited from time during their PhD here in Australia in what we call a Sanduíche program. I would also like to acknowledge His Excellency Mr. Timothy Kane, Australian Ambassador to Brazil. Thank you very much for joining us here this evening, Tim. Mr. Luis Fernando Machado from Itamaraty, or the Foreign Ministry in Brazil. Pleasure to have you here as well, and it's been very good to have you on this journey as well. You were there when we presented the idea at the Confap meeting at the end of last year. I'd also like to acknowledge Professor Aldir Delagostin, President of Confap and formerly President, or maybe still President of FAPI Rio Grande do Sul. Thank you very much for being here today and for this cooperation. We greatly appreciate it. And we greatly appreciate all of the work of your International Relations Director, Flavia Sequeira, as well, who has been instrumental in negotiating this MOU. And I was very privileged to meet Flavia, I think in my third week in the role. We're going to be moving to Brasilia, so it's been lovely to be able to see this come full circle. And I'd also like to acknowledge my team in Brazil, who have also been very instrumental in realising this MOU today. Christina Elsner, the Education Policy Manager in our team in the Embassy, and Luisa Neves as well, who is our Education Policy Officer, calling us today from Belém, and Christina from Brasilia. So I don't think I have forgotten anybody, and without any further ado, we might commence the formal part of the proceedings, and I would ask Ambassador Kane if you could offer a few words, please.
Well, thank you very much, Matt, including for those introductions. As I said, good morning everyone in Australia, and boa tarde to everyone here in Brazil. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in the signing of this Memorandum of Understanding between the Brazilian National Council of State Funding Agencies, or Confap, and Australia's Department of Education, Skills and Employment, DESE. Before I begin some remarks, I'd like to acknowledge Karen Sandercock, First Assistant Secretary from DESE, Professor Aldir Delagostin, President of Confap, My counterpart, and very good to see you, Sergio, Dr. Sergio Lima, Brazil's ambassador to Australia, and all those Brazilian and Australian officials who have made this MOU possible. And Matt, especially to you and your leadership, thank you for making this a reality. I am particularly pleased that this important development occurs as we celebrate 75 years of diplomatic relations between Brazil and Australia, an important milestone by any measure. Australia and Brazil share a close and growing relationship with many shared interests. Brazilians now form the largest Latin American migrant group resident in Australia. And as continental democracies, we are global players in agriculture, mining, and share a commitment to effective multilateral processes and open economies. Brazil is a key economic partner for Australia. It is one of Australia's largest trading partners in Latin America, with two-way merchandise trade of more than 2 billion Australian dollars. Brazilians are the largest cohort of students in Australia from outside Asia. We have a shared interest in increasing science and research cooperation between our countries, including through our bilateral science, technology and innovation agreement, which is currently before the Brazilian Senate. That agreement recognises Australia and Brazil share a range of research interests and priorities, which has made Brazil Australia's largest research partner in Latin America in terms of joint research publications and our 15th largest overall. In 2019, I was pleased to sign an MOU on agricultural research on behalf of the CSIRO with the world-renowned Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, Embrapa. Since then, CSIRO's interest in and collaboration with Brazilian partners has increased. Australia is recognised globally for its high-quality research. With less than 0.5% of the world's population, Australia contributes to more than 4% of our all scientific development internationally. Our hope is that this agreement between Confap and DESE will further expand the science and research relationship between Brazil and Australia and progress initiatives such as the Australia-Brazil Research Collaboration Week scheduled for 2021, which will be discussed later during this event. I welcome this MOU between Confap and DESE, which will connect Australian and Brazilian researchers in a practical way and assist them in undertaking long-term, mutually beneficial collaboration. Finally, I'd like to thank our Brazilian friends for the confidence you place in Australia and our institutions. I hope this MOU shepherds even greater bilateral research and education engagement over the next 75 years and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Tim. Now I'd like to invite Ambassador Dr. Sergio Lima to provide his remarks.
Thank you very much. Dear friends, my dear colleague, Tim Kane, I think Tim has said it all. He covered the whole field. And, you know, I think that my speech here was more or less along the same lines. But first, Assistant Secretary Ms. Karen Sundercork, Matthew Johnston, Barbara, David. It's a pleasure to meet you again, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here. And I wish to congratulate the Department of Education and Confap, Professor Odir Antonio de Lagostin, and his team, as well as Luis Fernando Machado from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and all those who are participating in this event and have contributed to it. So congratulations. Yeah, the education sector is one of the most prominent in the relationship between Australia and Brazil. And so all the efforts since the beginning of my tenure was to create synergies in the area of education. In addition to the presence of a large number of Brazilian students in Australia, as mentioned, more than 27,000 before the pandemic, there is an increase in the number of partnerships between Brazilian institutions and Australian educational and research institutions. So things are becoming more and more important, and rightly so. Australia is a great country, it's a very organized society, and I think these ties are of fundamental importance. They bring the two countries together in a structural way, strengthen links between our peoples, and enhancing their skills and capacity to contribute to the development of our modern societies. In addition, the agreement between the Department of Education and Confap encourages the strengthening of bilateral relationship in the research area. Tim has already mentioned the importance of the agreement that we have negotiated years ago, and it's still pending approval by the Brazilian Congress. And I'm confident that next year, early next year, as we overcome this COVID pandemics, it will be approved, because it has high priority in our works, and it will give a large contribution to the strengthening of science and technology and research relations between the two countries. The pandemic clearly shows the importance of international collaboration. I think that more and more, and Tim has mentioned our traditional contributions to multilateralism, and there is no replacement under such global challenge that we are facing. The only answer is multilateralism and a strong multilateral collaboration, the countries to come together. And I would even say more. I think that, in this tension that we are witnessing today, countries should wait a little bit, at least for 1 year, and concentrate the actions to help us on a humanity basis to overcome this crisis of COVID, and then the problems would, after solving it, we could continue our internal fights or between, as we are witnessing here, even today, But the MOU crowns an ongoing cooperation between the two countries in the academic and research institutions. And as Tim rightly said, it coincides with the celebration of Brazil and Australia's 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations. And if I also point out, as well as the political consultations that next week under the enhanced partnership of 2010 and the strategic relationship of 2012. So congratulations and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And now I'd like to invite the President of Confap, Professor Odir de Lagostin, to provide his address this evening. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, good morning for the participants in Australia and good evening for those in Brazil. I'd like to thank the presence of Ambassador Timothy Kane and Ambassador in this important occasion for Confap and the Department of Education, Skills and Employment. Ms. Karen Sandercook, it's a pleasure to meet you, even though only virtually. I hope we'll be able to meet in person. For Confap, this MOU is the first agreement signed with an Australian partner. We are therefore expanding the regions in the world where the state funding agencies, the FAPs, as we say in Portuguese, will be able to support high-level research carried out by groups of researchers of all fields of knowledge. By doing so, we'll be able to work together on solutions that will benefit population of Australia and Brazil. We already have collaboration between Australia and Brazil, Brazilian researchers in the Tropical Water Research Alliance, aiming to water management with multidisciplinary perspectives that consider the social, economic, and cultural approaches. Since the study conducted by the Alliance is important for both countries, Confap is discussing with the Brazilian Tropical Water Research Alliance members, aiming to sign a memorandum of understanding in order to facilitate the financial support of Brazilian researchers in different states of the country. Besides the agreement to jointly support research, we are discussing the organization of an Australia-Brazil Collaboration Week, as Ambassador Timothy mentioned. Initially, this week was planned to be held this year, with the aiming to promote the matchmaking of Brazilian and Australian researchers, especially in the field of health, especially on the research themes related to the combat of COVID-19 and its effects. However, it was necessary to adapt the organization of this activity. We are now planning virtual matchmaking meetings between the participants. In the near future, we hope to be able to visit Australia, accompanied by other FAPs presidents, in order to get to know better the Australian research and innovation strategies, and to strengthen our collaboration on science, technology, and innovation. Finally, I would like to take the opportunity to invite a representative of the Department of Education, Skills and Employment and the Australian Embassy in Brazil to participate in the international section of the Confap's Forum that will take place in 2 weeks' time. This forum is where the presidents of FAPs meet to discuss important issues related to Brazilian scientific and innovation policy, activities with national and international partners, and international matters. On this occasion, the representatives will be able to meet the FAP's presidents and jointly present this agreement. It will be an opportunity to motivate the FAPs to engage on the activities intended to foster the research carried out by Australian and Brazilian research groups. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you very much, Professor. I would now like to invite Karen Sandicott to provide her remarks for this morning's ceremony.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you very much, Professor Delagostin, for your address and for your enthusiastic support of the relationship. And can I thank Ambassador Lima, Mr. Fabio Roca, for the outstanding support that the Australia-Brazil education and research relationship has enjoyed here through our connections in Canberra, and extend those thanks indeed to Mr. Luis Mercado for the support that we have had from all levels of the Brazilian government, to acknowledge Ambassador Kane for his efforts in continuing to support that cooperation, and again reiterate Australia's thanks to Confapi from the Department of Education, Skills and Employment, and to those who have been involved in supporting the relationship and have brought us to this point today. It is my great pleasure to be able to sign this significant Memorandum of Understanding with Confapi on behalf of the Australian Government Department of Education, and I thank all of you here today for your commitment to deepening the research relationship between Australia and Brazil. I think this MOU comes at a really critical time for international cooperation, for international education and research, and our collaborative partnerships have never been more important, frankly. As the COVID pandemic continues to have an enormous impact across the world, we face huge health, economic, environmental challenges. But by working together, sharing knowledge and expertise, Australia, Brazil can contribute to the innovative solutions that will help us tackle these global challenges. And it's my hope that today marks not just the continuation, but a real strengthening of a growing research relationship between Australia and Brazil. Brazil's always been an important partner for us, and we share a great many research interests and priorities. And as was mentioned earlier, Australia is very proud to host a growing number of Brazilian students who contribute to our education and research systems and bring cultural understanding. And we've seen those numbers grow substantially by some 40% over the last few years, meaning that Brazil is Australia's largest education partner in Latin America and our 5th largest education partner in the world, as Ambassador Kane acknowledged. I think we currently host over 20,000 Brazilian students in Australia, which is tremendous given they're engaged in a broad range of fields and study. But it's our hope that they will open up opportunities to share knowledge, innovation and cooperation well beyond their studies. We both have talented researchers, and it's our commitment to share the best of that research, collaboration and inspiration to drive the relationship even further. I visited Brazil, it was over 2 years ago when I first joined Matt in Brazil following participation in G20 education meetings hosted by Argentina. And it was on that trip that I had the great pleasure to meet Professor Fernando Menezes from FAPESI to start a discussion about the high quality research environment in Brazil, how we could expand cooperation with Australia. And I was really impressed by the value and prioritisation Brazil affords to international collaboration in research, and its desire to collaborate with Australia was very evident. And it was a result of that meeting, in actual fact, that the Australian government was then able to prioritise support for the Research Collaboration Week, which we very much look forward to occurring next year. And from that, the relationship with Confap began to grow to the point where today we are signing this historic MOU to further our international cooperation. Ambassador Lima, you spoke about the growing research partnerships between Australia and Brazil. It has grown from a very, very small number back in 2007, when there were only less than 20 agreements between our institutions. Now, more than a decade later, we have over 135 agreements between Australian and Brazilian institutions, and almost all of those prioritise research cooperation. In the last 3 years, we've seen Brazilian and Australian researchers co-author nearly 8,000 joint research publications, and the impact, what's being achieved from academic work, is tremendous, with a 4-fold increase in impact achieved for Brazilian and Australian researchers, which really highlights to us the value of this cooperation and what can be achieved working forward. We have great strengths together in medical and health science, biological sciences, physical sciences and engineering, and all of those are priority areas of research for Australia and are of growing importance with the global challenges that we face currently. So I know that this MOU and the subsequent Brazil-Australia Research Collaboration Week to follow next year will make an enormous contribution to our research engagement. And as we work together, We really need to focus through that research cooperation on identifying the topics of global importance that affect both our countries that we can take forward as this relationship grows. Professor Delagostin, colleagues, I very much look forward to our ongoing collaboration and research partnership as a result of today's MOU. As our bilateral research relationship continues to grow and strengthen, we very much seek to embrace those opportunities to work together with you on the shared challenges. We look forward to ongoing dialogue with the embassy here in Canberra, through Matt, through Ambassador Kane, with colleagues in Brasilia. And can I say a big thank you for all the efforts that have gone on behind the scenes, the many people in this room and in the virtual rooms in Brazil, for the huge amounts of efforts. It's a great step forward and a significant achievement for the Brazil-Australia research relationship. Thank you all. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, thank you very much, Karen, and thank everyone for your remarks this morning. And I think, you know, everyone emphasised the criticality of research cooperation to our broader bilateral relationship between Australia and Brazil, and it's really pleasing to be able to add to that and provide a strategic agreement to increase that in a very practical way. So now we're going to have the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, and just to explain this a little bit, so Karen will sign today on behalf of Australia, then we will magic it over to Brazil, where Professor Odia will sign it in 2 weeks' time at the meeting of Confap that he mentioned, and we will invite presidents of the FAPIs around Brazil to sign on to that agreement as well, and we can present more of the plans for the Research Collaboration Week in 2021 and future activities. So following the signing, we're going to have 3 photographs, so sorry to be a bit administrative here. We'll have a photograph with the group, so a family photo, and then a photograph of Karen, Professor Odia, and Ambassador Kane and Ambassador Lima. Then we'll have a photo of the signing. So what I propose to do is we start with photos, and then we'll have the signing, and then we'll conclude our ceremony, if that suits. So why don't we start with a group photo? So if I could ask those people who are hiding, Flavia, to put your camera on, please. Thank you. And Fernando, if you want to as well, and call Fabi, but up to you. And then we'll need to figure out, well, Scott, you'll need to figure out how to do the photo.
Indeed.
I have no idea.
Indeed.
We flank the screen, do we?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. So, David, can I ask you to tilt the main camera down? Apologies to everybody. We're going to disappear from view for a moment because you don't want to see the back of it.
Okay, everyone, you can turn your cameras back on if you like. And so now we'll have the signing of the MOU. So Karen, I'd invite you to sign both copies.
Thank you very much. Oh, I might just get my glasses.
Yes.
Otherwise I am at risk of signing the wrong line.
And Ambassador, if you would like to witness, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
We'll check that that's your signature afterwards.
I promise you. We're not able able to shake hands, Ambassador. Anyway, a photo will survive.
An elbow bump.
You can do an elbow bump if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
To those on screen, thank you. We have achieved success.
Okay, round of applause.
Excellent.
Okay, well, with that, that's the conclusion of our ceremony this evening. I'd like to thank everyone once again for all of your work, support, friendship and collegiality to help us bring this MOU to fruition. And we look forward to working with you all more in the future. Now the real work has to start. So we're looking forward to that and for a very fruitful 2021. So I'd like to thank everyone for making the time to mark this event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody, and congratulations. Terrific
Thank you.
initiative. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.